The worst movie that could possibly be made, starring Crow in Washington.
The action sequences in Virtuosity are so over the top that you might find yourself wondering if the characters are starring in a video game gone wild.
The world of Virtuosity may be spanking new, but the ideas are yesterday's news.
They say the future is now, but Virtuosity proves that sometimes the future is just laughably dated CGI and cringy one-liners.
Rarely you see such crap from such great actors.
Someone should tell Hollywood that mass killer genre is dead and that its virtual reality counterpart is already wheezing.
95 minutes of unsubstantial firefights and meandering plot twists.
A cyber thriller that thinks it's smarter than it actually is, leaving you pondering whether you should delete it from your memory banks.
Welcome to this week's episode of Slept On Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
And I'm Grove Street.
And this week we are getting into the 1995 virtual reality cyber thriller, Virtuosity. This movie is awesome. I'm just going to say that right now. This movie kicks ass.
Some people might not think it's a good movie, but this is a great movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great description. Some people might not say it's good, but if someone says it's not great, you just shouldn't be taking advice from them.
Another great litmus test movie. If somebody watches this and they don't like it, then maybe stop taking their recommendations.
Absolutely. As always, all the movies that we review on this podcast are at or below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and audiences, which is, once again, shocking here. And we set up the pod so that the first half is spoiler-free. Talk about some things to look for in the movie, take a break, go watch the film, come back, and talk about what we just watched.
We get to the rotten premise?
Do it.
All right, rotten premise. A former cop who has been imprisoned for murdering the psychopath who killed his family, Parker Barnes is recruited to test out a new virtual reality program where the goal is to apprehend a computer-generated being called Sid 6.7, who has been modeled on hundreds of deranged criminals. When Sid manages to escape into the real world, Barnes must capture or destroy him before the soulless entity can go on a killing spree. Now, despite this premise and the actors in this, somehow the critics only gave this 32% and the audience matched that low score with 32%. Ridiculously low scores.
Makes no sense. Were they watching the same movie? Is there another movie named Virtuosity that somehow got mixed up with this?
I don't know if this is like because Denzel was in it, there was like this huge expectation for an amazing film, and it was just a great movie, and that was like somehow of a letdown, so maybe that clouded the judgment. I don't know. I have to come up with something to get to the rationale of the audience and critics for only being 32%.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into this. I could understand it more now, where some people just can't handle old CGI. But at the time, this wasn't old CGI. This was like cutting edge. So that doesn't really seem like that could be the reason.
Totally agree.
All right, just a little bit of background. Movie came out August 4th, 1995. Opened number 4. It was a banger of a weekend, really. So Waterworld, the reigning number 1. It was the second week of Waterworld.
Great future episode.
Future episode. Maybe if we can get the slept on cut, that's not incredible. Just ahead of The Net, number 5, also its second week.
Whoa!
OG slept on episode. So awesome time to be a movie fan. Just I feel like really any time in the 90s, you could just go up to the theater and have all these choices like this. So it took down 8.3 million its opening weekend. Budgeted 30 million. Total worldwide gross was only 24. So I guess unlike most films that we talk about, this one actually I guess didn't make a ton of money, which again makes no sense. Maybe it was just came out at the wrong time. There were so many other good movies to go see at that point that people just couldn't see all of them. I mean, that makes some sense.
It's got to be something like that, because otherwise I don't understand why it did so poorly.
Yeah. And especially with these two stars, and just to give a little context to where we were with Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, since now everybody knows them, they're multi-Oscar winning actors. There's probably some of the most respected actors of our generation. So Denzel had already been in over a dozen films. I mean, Cry Freedom, Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X, Philadelphia, Crimson Tide. He'd already been nominated twice for Best Supporting Actor, one for Cry Freedom, or sorry, one for Glory, nominated for Cry Freedom, nominated for Best Actor for Malcolm X. Didn't win, but I do feel like we should just say he won that Best Actor. Like he should have won that. Like Al Pacino won for Son of a Woman.
Everyone adds that award to his resume, so let's
he won that, but they just had to give it to Al Pacino because that's how these things work, I guess.
Yep.
But so he won that. So he's already won a bunch of Oscars coming into this. Going to probably have one of the greatest careers of any actor of all time. I think we can probably say that, right? Like he's probably the best actor of all time.
I don't know how you can argue that.
Yeah, and did also get 3 nominations for Blockbuster Entertainment Award later in his career. So
the most important nominations that we agree to.
Absolutely. Russell Crowe, on the other hand, this was really, really early in his career. He'd been in a number of Australian films, but in 1995, when this movie came out, it was his first year of doing U.S. films. He was already huge in Australia, but he did this and Quick and the Dead. I think.
He had a small part in that. I think he was awesome in it too.
Yeah. So this was his first big U.S. feature film, and he was awesome. He would also go on to have just a crazy successful career. He had won Blockbuster Entertainment Award. In 2001, he was nominated for 2 categories and won one. He won for Favorite Actor for Gladiator for action, and then he was nominated for Favorite Actor Suspense for Proof of Life. So these guys nominated all over the place, winning all over the place. Some of the best actors we've had, both in one movie. At kind of like interesting early stage of their careers, certainly for Russell Crowe. But they're just awesome, and they're great in this film, and it's kind of fun to see them earlier in their career, both in the same film.
Yeah, this is not just 2 of the best at their time. These are 2 of the best. These are like Mount Rushmore type actors, and it's so crazy to see them. You're right. Denzel is a little more established in this. Russell Crowe got 3rd billing behind Kelly Lynch in this one, so he wasn't even like the second star. He somehow got 3rd billing because, like you said, nobody really knew who he was. But once he popped on that screen for the first time, I think that was it. It was over. Everyone in America knew who he was.
Oh yeah,
Virtuosity.
yeah. I mean, it's a super fun film. It's super fun to see these 2 guys going head to head, and knowing that while Denzel was already certainly established, both of their careers just take off after this. Just absolute dynamite #1 stars after this.
They were in another movie together later on, right? American Gangster.
Yeah, American Gangster. And they kind of flipped roles, and there, here Denzel's the cop and Crowe's the bad guy, and they flip there, which is also I'm sure they had a lot of fun with that.
I'm sure. Yep. All right, I'm excited. You want to get to Bolos?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this movie for the Bolos, and later when we get to the draft, my lists were so long. I had to start crossing things out because I was like, this is going to be a 3-hour podcast, and we can't have 2 of those back to back.
Same here. This is definitely one of those movies with tons of choices.
Yeah,
and I'll start with Bolo. Excuse me's.
Love it. I'm going to go Bolo NPCs, or non-playable characters.
That was my second one. That's perfect. Bolo emojis.
Nice. It's an interesting time period for emojis because emojis were already old at this point. And then they have a comeback, obviously, but at this point they were already like something from the past, which is crazy.
Yeah. Something people use to sign off their emails, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to go Bolo decimals.
Oh, nice. Very big in the 90s with technology. Bolo, a long tongue.
I'll follow that right up with Bolo, an unwanted lick.
Bolo, chilling out.
And Bolo, a metallic limb.
Yep. This might come up again later, but Bolo jargon. Lots of it.
Tons of. This is a big era for jargon, and
big time.
Love it. I want to say Bolo, carefully placed objects in a particular scene.
Very good. I'll kind of piggyback. A careful camera panning up slowly on a naked Denzel.
No, I'll also go just Bolo crowbutt.
Definitely Bolo crowbutt. Bolo gray suits.
Definitely a little sort of reminiscent of the Matrix, I feel like, with those gray suits.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was probably, I'm sure, The Matrix was a bit of an homage to Virtuosity. I'm sure.
That's what everyone knows. Yeah, for sure.
Uh, I'll tie in there. Bolo, some kick-ass blue police jumpsuits.
So kick ass. Like, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened yet. They haven't just switched to those uniforms.
Yeah, they will. I mean, it's like they still seem futuristic, so we're probably
Right.
we're not ready for it yet.
A few more years. Bolo overacting extras. Keep an eye out.
Let's say Bolo a snake.
Nice. Bolo a hand touch.
The touching moment.
Very touching moment.
Let's say Bolo Kaylee Cuoco.
Yep.
Great. I feel like that's another thing that makes a really great movie, takes it just up another notch when there's a super young actor or actress who then goes on to become super famous. And you're like, oh my God, it's so and so. And this movie even checks that box.
Bolo gravity.
Oh, yeah. Tough to avoid that one. And I'll go Bolo Glass.
Great one. Bolo glass. Bolo being a copycat.
Also, made me think whenever I just heard that word in a movie of the movie Copycat, which is also pod eligible. I could see it coming up. Yeah,
That's definitely going to be done then. Love that movie.
I'm gonna say Bolo a fancy stylus. I do feel like this was the era where maybe styluses were gonna just take off and be part of our lives forever, and then that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's what we thought. Bolo glitches.
Yep, very crucial early on. And I'm gonna say Bolo silhouettes.
Bolo, my favorite Bolo to ever pick, and there was a few in this. Bolo nut shots.
I'm gonna say, and this is our second movie of this, but Bolo Chalk. It's our second Chalk movie.
It's a big deal. Bolo, an amazing vertical leap.
Yes. And I'm gonna say Bolo an amazing mustache.
Yes. Bolo asking someone about their family.
This is my last one. I could go on forever. When I say just Bolo sushi. Sushi.
All right, I'll pick one last one. This will bring up again later, but Bolo, the amount of viewers who are watching things in this movie.
Crucial plot element.
Very crucial. All right, time to get to what drink to best pair with this movie.
So I'm gonna say anything with blue curacao would be a great drink to pair. And if you gotta pick one. Just go with the classic, the Blue Hawaii. Rum, vodka, blue curacao, and pineapple juice. The classic, I don't know, tiki drink. It's super blue. It's one of those things you order it and everyone's like, whoa, what's that? I think that would go great with the film. And I'm going to throw a little bonus in with a snack to go with it. Get yourself a side of some rock candy.
Wow. I don't think we've had a side before, but this is the perfect movie to introduce sides. I mean, first, perfect example. Those would go very well together, and you'll know why once you watch the movie. I couldn't agree more that blue curacao is a required element, and that is also in my drink and the main focus of my drink.
Hell yeah.
Yep. It is called the Cyber Cosmo. There's some great suits in this. There's some nightclub atmosphere. I feel like a Cyber Cosmo would perfectly put you in the mood. Long stem glass, of course. It has 2 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of blue curacao, an ounce of lime juice, half an ounce of simple syrup, and a lime wheel for garnish.
Sounds awesome. Sign me up.
Yeah, the description is the blue color of the cocktail represents the virtual world and the futuristic theme, while the mix of vodka and citrus flavors adds a refreshing and tangy touch. Perfect for sipping while watching Virtuosity. I have no idea why that's in the description, but it absolutely is.
I mean, I'm 100% convinced that someone designed that drink after watching this film. There's no doubt in my mind.
If you're a bartender, your mind is just blown with blue curacao options for drinks when watching this movie. Like, how many different drinks can you make with blue curacao to pair with this movie?
I'm gonna go out and get some blue curacao this week.
I've never bought it, but when I've seen it out in other people's drinks, and it's mind blowing. I don't know why I haven't had it before.
Same. I've never owned a bottle, but that's going to change.
We're gonna wait till we're in our 40s to have.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we both love this movie, and I know you. If you're a fan of our show, you'll love this too. So, take a break here, so you get a chance to go watch the movie.
Yeah, enjoy.
Enjoy.
In this high-tech crime prevention facility, one man has been recruited to play a simulated game. The objective, to hunt down the ultimate virtual reality killer, Sid 6.7. There's only one problem. The computer changed the program. Now, he's in the real world.
He's interactive.
On your knees, now!
He doesn't enjoy the game unless he's playing against his favorite opponent, and that's me.
From the director of Lawnmower Man.
He's recreating mass murders.
So you're saying Sid's a copycat?
Sid 6.7 is intent on improving the original.
Denzel Washington.
Just because I'm carrying around the joy of killing your family inside me doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Virtuosity.
Game over.
Slept on Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back.
What a great movie.
That was just awesome. I feel like everything about it was awesome. It was fun at the very beginning. Like you know how I love movies that just get you going in the film and get you right into it. And this, with that opening sequence, the training sequence, Denzel, Crow facing off right from the jump, it just gets you right in it. You're instantly in this VR world. You know you're going to be in VR, computer, tech stuff, these two just heavyweights battling. And then all the way through, and then the end was also just awesome. It just hits you with that crazy ending about what's going on. I've never seen that happen before. There's sort of like 3 endings in one.
Yep.
It was awesome.
I had no idea what was going on when they went back to the VR at the end. I thought that was so well done. And this movie starts off so hot and continues, like you said, from the moment Denzel gets off that train in the VR.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was like futuristic suits, and they're all both looking slick, and there's all those NPCs everywhere, and he has that look like, oh, I can't believe, and his buddy's like, we look so different. He's like, oh yeah, what is it, the suits or something? But clearly, like, everything is very different, but he has that Denzel face, like, I'm going to make this the most serious role I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Right as he gets off that train.
So good. All right. I was talking about this in the break, that I think this is the draft where I've had more things to choose from. I literally have a dozen things to pick from, and I don't know where I'm going to go. And
Well, you get to start first.
And I do think I'm going to go a little bit out of left field here. And maybe some might say this is a deep sleeper, but this is just, I realize this is what I think of when I think of this film, and it's been stuck in my head since the first time I saw this to prepare for the podcast. And this is a deep cut here, so prepare yourself.
Deep cut, first overall pick.
Deep cut, yep. I just have to have it. It's my draft. It's my, my.
Get you guys. Yep.
I'm taking when they're at that UFC fight and that pow chant goes, and everyone pumping their arms, going boom, boom, pow, pow, and pumping their fists, and the energy that chant goes. I'm taking that first overall. I loved that scene so much. I was like, how is this not a chant that's at every sporting event? It was the greatest chant of all time, and it's just kind of randomly in this movie. It was amazing. Some might say it's a deep sleeper, but I'm taking that first.
I don't think, when you said deep sleeper, deep cut, I thought it was going to be a lot deeper than that. This is so obvious to me. I mean, I've seen this movie a few times in preparation with notes, whatever, and I found myself washing dishes in my head going, wow, like having the chant go on. And while that craziness was happening in the movie, the chant was still going on. Like, people being shot, people being thrown from the rafters, and the chant is still going. Ken Shamrock is in the ring with Sid, and the chant is still going on.
That's how powerful that chant is. It can't be stopped. It's I think the greatest chant of all time.
Definitely the best chant. We've had some rings and some fights in our podcast movies and some good chants, but that's got to be the best chant that we've had by far.
It's amazing. It blew me away. I watched it a number of times. I watched the YouTube clips of it. It's like it got stuck in my head and I just had to hear it. So I just kept watching it on YouTube. It's amazing. I love it.
Well, sometimes I go kind of deep cut on my first few picks, but this time, if they slept, I was going to take the two most obvious picks. Although it turns out there were three obvious picks. I forgot about the chant. But my first pick, I'm going to give him first round money, is Russell Crowe.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that's the obvious. He goes just absolute ham in this. It's amazing.
And he doesn't, even with like sometimes, I think we've had a movie before where like Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever like cackles a little bit too much and seems a little bit too crazy. And this was just so spot on. Every moment he's on the screen, your eyes are glued. You have no idea what Sid's going to do next. And I mean, from naked like self-stabbings to I can't bring up too many other things because I think we might pick them, but he just was like born to be a star. And if the country, the U.S., didn't know who he was, like this movie's like, wow. And then Gladiator came out, what, a year or two right after this?
Yeah. I mean, that's right. That this was such a great introduction, and you could tell he knew he was doing that. He was like, United States, welcome to the world.
There's an episode of Always Sunny where Charlie does the butt dance. I don't know if you remember that. And then later on, he tries to do it again when he's not, feeling it. And Sudeikis goes in. He's like, the reason we're not laughing is you're not enjoying yourself while you do it. And it seemed like Russell Crowe was enjoying himself while doing it. And then it was so palpable. You could pick up on that. And it just was so great. He did such a great job in this. I know he looked back and kind of regretted this movie. Him and Denzel, I heard a couple quotes that they did, but while it was happening, there was no regret because they were fully invested.
I don't think I've ever seen an actor have as much fun with a role as he's having in this movie. It just, you can tell. You can just absolutely tell he's just having a blast.
Yeah, I had to give him first pick, and I know it's tough with those two, but my second pick, which is the first of the second round back-to-back, is Denzel. So I picked Russell Crowe and Denzel in back-to-back picks. One of them being a second rounder. I don't think I'll ever get to do something like this again.
That's your best draft of all time. That's amazing.
My favorite two parts of Denzel's acting in this is one, every single time he's hooked up to the machine and they show him in VR and he has to like pretend like he's walking or running or chasing and or dying almost in the beginning. And he just kills it and sells it. You think he's actually in that machine. And then he does his his shackle run walk thing that, the shackles really ever on him but they only show him from like the waist up, and his like gait is just so perfect.
Perfect with those tiny little steps because his feet are chained. And it's like only Denzel could nail of course he's perfect at VR, and of course he's perfect doing the like perp walk. I feel like he is so meticulous and gets every single piece of his characters down, every last detail because that matters to the viewer. So he gives us that.
Yeah, what the saying, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And like every scene of his and every moment, he's Denzel. You see it. And he's also yoked in this movie. This is like a jacked Denzel that sometimes you forget about because he's been around in movies for so long. He's always been strong or whatever, but like this is a jacked Denzel.
Yeah, he's huge. That when they're scanning him and putting him back into prison, you're just like, you could tell he's like, yep. Like, I worked out for this movie, and you're going to give me the full body scan. Yeah,
they needed the full body scan because he was just so big to even realize that there was a metal arm under there. They were just like, yeah, looks about right on your huge frame.
Yep.
But you have a metal arm. But
yeah, he was amazing. Every little thing he did, it was like even him walking into like the crime scene and like looking around at stuff. I feel like no one looks around at stuff as good as Denzel does.
It's because I think he sees more than we do. So he's like seeing things on another level. So I'd rather, instead of look in the room and see what I see, look at Denzel and see what he sees. That's probably a better view of what's
there. You're going to see way more by seeing Denzel seeing things than you would ever see.
So there was a review when this started about how this is the worst movie ever that could involve Denzel and Crowe. And I think we talked about how that's still a great movie. And it was like these two were so good in this movie. And not that everything else didn't matter, but also kind of. everything else didn't matter because you have Russell Crowe and Denzel at their like peak, just destroying the movie. So those two just went so well together.
I'd also contend that it's factually inaccurate because this movie is better than American Gangster.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
If I had to choose between which one I would watch, and we just watched this a few times, which one we have to watch tonight, I'm choosing Virtuosity again.
yeah, 100%. I American Gangster was a movie I watched once.
Yeah, and the film students can have that movie.
Right.
That's not.
Well, what a draft! I mean, you're never going to have another draft like this. So
No,
just
this
soak it
is
in.
my peak.
Soak it in. All right, my second pick. I'm going to take that whole club scene. It's so 90s. In the film itself, it's when Russell Crowe's character is really realizing what it is he wants, what he wants to be, what he can do in this world with getting all this attention and taking over this club scene. The music is awesome. The musical, like the DJ instruments are so cool. Even just getting into the club, it has one of my, this is one of my personal favorites. It has just this awesome giant industrial elevator that you take to get to it. So, I'm in from the get-go just on the elevator alone. But that whole scene, I watched that a number of times. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, that also involves the, which was I might have taken later on, the Symphony of Screams, the club scene. That was just putting everyone up to the recorder with a gun to their head and just being like, yeah, scream as scared as you can be. And then using that later on for his big symphony scene. It's
brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the colors in there were perfect too, which went along with our drinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was so, that's exactly it. The colors were so 90s. And I know all that's sort of like coming back now too, which is just a perfect time to experience this movie again.
That the lead singer of that group who ran off was famous in the 90s. That's Tracy Lords.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tracy Lords. She was in movies and I think pornography, and she got caught going like underage or something like that. But she was like in a bunch of movies in the 90s. Stephen King's Tommy Knockers and a bunch of other ones. Zach and Miri Make a Porno. She's in that. But
interesting. Good eye.
Just a small little bit role in that scene.
Yep. All right. My third pick, I'm going to go with the ending. The sort of the triple ending that you get. It's like you got all of the best endings you could want. You got to experience them all, but none of them felt like gimmicky. Like none of it. I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, it was like just a dream, or oh, this was like something stupid. But this was all like they were all calculated and all purposeful. The first one, it was almost a dream, but it was Denzel thinking things through and seeing, all right, if I take this step, what's going to be the outcome? Because that's Denzel's always, 20 steps ahead of everybody else. Yeah. So that made sense. And then you're like, okay, now we're back to the real world. But in reality, you're in virtual reality, and you find that out. Like I had to go back and watch this like 3 times before I understood what was going on. But it was just fantastic. It was one of these things that they played with the audience like they were sort of playing with Russell Crowe's character, which I think is just a fun way to experience a film.
It felt a little Snake Eyesy because you got the same scene over and over again, but it wasn't the same. But if you're Russell Crowe, you didn't quite know what was going on. But when they came back to the rooftop and Denzel got like tossed over the edge of the building, first off, you're like, what is going on here? Because you didn't know they were back in the VR. And that was such a great reveal when he just did a push-up off the ground and was like, all right.
I also just loved that rooftop fight as an area for like a location for a fight at the end of the movie. It was like, it made me think of like a Mortal Kombat level or like a Street Fighter level. Like it felt like one of those kind of retro one-on-one 2D fighting game locations.
Yeah, you could get uppercut into some spikes if you fell off there.
Yep.
Absolutely. Or Cable Guy on the satellite up above. The 90s liked some good rooftop and high up fight scenes.
Yep.
That's a great pick. Let's see, my third pick. I have to go with the prison fight scene, which felt like it could be like an iconic scene that with massive buildup in any other movie, and it was just another scene in this. But it was a massive scene where the silhouettes were just throwing out paper and trash, and all of a sudden he was going to go back to his usual spot, protective custody basically in the prison. They send him into Gen Pop. and he has to meet Big Red, the big racist dude with the
Yeah, the like power salute and the crazy
Yeah.
streak and the
and
hair,
it's
facial discoloration. I don't know what that is.
well, maybe that went along with his name, Big Red. I didn't know that was his name.
Yep.
On Amazon. But yeah, they had to go just with that, like the whole wing of white supremacists who wanted dark meat in a shank that was like perfectly made.
Mhm.
I got to go with that scene. I just thought it was so badass, and it was just almost like a nothing scene. But he was just saying he beat the guy's ass in front of everyone and being like, "I'm here. Send someone else. Whatever."
Yeah, that's a great pick. That scene, start to finish, was amazing. I loved even just when Denzel's standing in that sort of staging area waiting for the door he thinks to open, and then the Gen Pop door opens. It's just like the way that looked. That other door goes up, and you're like, shit is going to go down once that door opens. And it didn't take long for that to happen.
I wonder what you think those are all like people in the production crew that was in that building, just like throwing out all the paper and be in the because you don't see anyone who's in.
Yeah, it's probably just like, people's friends and anyone who's there who wasn't doing something at the moment. But that'd be such a great thing to be like, oh yeah, Virtuosity, you seen it? I was that silhouette and that crazy.
Yeah. I blew out the paper. Yeah. Such a good scene. It just felt like it could be like the ending of a massive movie, and it's just another scene.
Yep.
And in that scene, I realized another like trope or thing in a movie that I just love. It just shows how badass somebody is. This is my fourth pick, my sleeper pick here, which is part of the same scene. It shows how badass somebody is that when Denzel fought the guy who came into the fight, Big Red, with his shank, when the guy ended up getting his ass kicked and he dropped it, Denzel was like, pick that up, pick it up. I want this to be even more fair a fight. You pick that up and then I'm going to kick your ass even more. But like the idea that you have somebody pick up a weapon so they have more of an advantage because you already know no matter what they pick up or do, you have them destroyed. I love that.
Yeah,
part.
It's so good. It's so good. It was so
the bat, whatever.
Yeah, it's like it was the perfect way of like everyone else is watching and I know that. So I want them to know that like it doesn't matter what you have, what weapon you have. Like I'm still going to kick your ass and make you look stupid.
Yeah, you got everyone else in here. This is the biggest dude here, and he's got a knife, and I'm destroying him. So don't get any other ideas.
Yeah, great pick. My sleeper pick, and I feel like this is kind of retro, and I don't know if this really happens anymore. But I just love when you get a whole bunch of TVs and they're all on the same channel. I just love that. I feel like you used to see that in electronic stores. Maybe I just don't go to those stores anymore, but it was awesome here when Russell Crowe's going around and putting them all on that one channel. And there's obviously a fight over him trying to change it on to what he wants to watch and not what this other guy wants to watch. But I just love having a bunch of TVs on the same channel. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, you used to be able to walk. There was that would be a way in movies like the Apollo moon landing or something like that to show how many people are watching TVs, to show them outside of stores watching TVs from outside the store through the glass window. So totally agree.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not a thing anymore. Like people still buy TVs. Why aren't there just?
I don't think they're put up in windows anymore. No one's like walking by and being like, "Aha, I need a TV." I feel like you just go into Best Buy.
Yeah, well, Best Buy should work on that.
I don't know why Best Buy doesn't have windows out front.
Do they even have windows at Best Buy?
I don't think so. All right, let's move on to our superlative. Favorite jargon is our superlative for this movie.
And there's some great choices.
So many good choices. I'm going to go with my favorite. It's not what anyone says. It's just, well, maybe they do say it, but it's mainly it's on the screen. It's the neural information bar. When it says, they screamed neurosensors over 6,000 at one point. Makes no sense. 6,000 seems way too high. It seems like over 100% would be a lot, but 600%? I think I said 6,000. 600%. Neurosensors over 6. There's no frame of reference. I have no idea if that's a lot, how dangerous that is.
Right, because it's a percentage. You think after 100, you're kind of out of luck. Like you're
right.
I guess not though.
Stupid thing of like how much energy you give. If you say 100%, someone's like, "Well, I'll give 110." Well, that's made up. Yes. 100% seems like everything.
Yes. Yeah.
But a good part, if you want to go back and rewatch, if you watch that neural information bar, it doesn't always line up with the situation.
Mm.
It might go at 800 and then down to 6% or 100 and then back up to 600.
Maybe it's just the sensors they're overloaded, so they can't know what's going on.
Yeah, you're right. I take that all back. I don't know how neurosensors work, so maybe that's how they just work.
I also like that. I feel like Denzel could just handle his neuro sensors were just stronger than anyone. I feel like that other guy, that other inmate, he would have died with what Denzel went through.
Yeah, it's if you've seen the new Top Gun, Tom Cruise can handle going to like Mach 10, and nobody else can without passing out. Denzel can handle this amount of neuro sensors.
Mm-hmm. All right, my favorite jargon, also neural related. I'm just going with the neural network. This comes up a couple times, and the first time is when Russell Crowe is talking to his programmer, and he says he's sort of describing what he is, and sort of says like you know what I am, like I'm not some toy here. He says
I'm a swan dive.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a 50 terabyte self-evolving neural network, double backflip off the high platform. I'm not a swan dive. And it's just like welcome Russell Crowe.
Yep.
You also get a little bit when they're talking about the snake. He describes that as like, oh, it's a neural net attached to these little bot things. I looked it up to try to figure out, okay, I should understand what a neural network is. I looked it up. I still don't understand. I asked like stupid person explanation for neural network. Like none of it got me there. I just know it sounds cool and it has something to do with computers mimicking brains, which is also cool.
How does glass fix a snake? Did you Google that too?
Yeah, right.
That snake cutting scene still, like, for whatever reason, stands out. That's what I remember from seeing it when I was like a kid, cutting that snake. I don't know what that was. Definitely stood out.
So cool. That's what it was.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Just so cool. And then you're like, oh, there's blue gunk in there. It's not even bleeding.
Yeah, those are the microbots or bot organisms. Micro something.
Probably micro nanosynthetic something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There's a couple honorable mentions here. At one point, they were explaining what SID 6.7 was. And someone's like, oh, is it Android? Sorry?
I don't know if it's as jargon, but just the fact that SID stands for sadistic, intelligent, dangerous. That's just an awesome acronym.
Yeah, and he calls himself that, like in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
What is that statue? Yeah, so cool. But he was described as an android, and then someone that like underling douche who got punched at the end was like, actually, a nanotech synthetic organism to be precise. He had to correct somebody said android. Thought that was great. Also, another little snide comment: the nanocells are silicone based, so they need glass to regenerate. It was like this obvious, like, you don't know that it needs glass to regenerate.
It's this thing that no one else has ever seen in the entire history of mankind. It's like, but you didn't realize this?
And one more. After the partner died in the VR, when they were asked about the sensitivity calibrations, it was like, the sensitivity calibrations must have slipped just a tad. And that was the explanation. That was why he died. Sensitivity calibrations.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that was part of it. They were just like, well, they're using these inmates as guinea pigs. It was like, who cares? We'll just tweak some settings next time and run it back.
Yeah, really, what's the word? We lost a couple inmates, whatever.
It's crazy. I mean, that's part of it, is they're painting these scientists and the attorney general as just callous, and as they were. All
right, one change to be a blockbuster, if that's possible. What do you got?
The only thing that I could think of is I wanted more of the Denzel and Crowe scenes. Like, you have these two all-time greats, and you get them in the beginning, you get them at the end, you get them a little bit in the middle, but just clear the floor. Give me them going head to head. I could have done with way more of that.
Yeah, we needed like a Demolition Man style where Stallone and Snipes would just at each other the entire movie.
Exactly.
That. Every scene is just them battling each other.
Yeah.
That could have only have helped if they were seeing more scenes together. So that's a great choice. I wanted more copycat murders. I thought that was so cool in the beginning when Crow came out and he did the Maryland, he did the Charles Manson murders, and then Death to Pigs, and I was like, oh wow, they're gonna recreate like these Gacy and Bundy and all these other murders leading up to it, and they just stopped. We could have had all these creations of these cool murders in our history of these serial killers, and we just got the one. I mean, 1.5. We got like the semi recreation of the serial killer that didn't exist that killed Denzel's family, but like we didn't get the known serial killers besides Manson.
Yep. Yeah. No, that would have been awesome. I mean, maybe they filmed those and had to cut them. I mean, obviously you're dealing with time constraints, but that would have been fantastic.
That's a good point, because my second one was to shorten the movie just a tad. I was a little long.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I feel like they could have cut more scenes where it didn't have Denzel and Crow or some badass technology. Like when they were sitting around in like an office talking about like what to do, they could have cut that.
Absolutely. Yep. You got any spin-off ideas?
So I got a kind of half-baked spin-off idea, but part of the fun of this one is that you can actually go and kind of watch it because it already also kind of exists. I was just saying, give me like a Sheila 3.2 movie. I mean, Sheila 3.2 seemed fantastic. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, maybe that's just weird science.
She wasn't great at chess.
Yeah, so this would be weird science, but then you get a little of the chess wrinkle, which was super hot when Queen's Gambit came out. So
yeah,
I thought it all through, but I feel like you have two great elements right there, and just mash that together, and boom, you got a great movie.
I would definitely watch that. That's a great idea. Weird science meets Queen's Gambit. I mean, even the premise alone, you're like, well, I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. I have to watch the movie first and see what this is.
Yeah. But I feel like that's one of those things you walk into a pitch meeting in Hollywood, because I assume how this all works. You just walk in with an idea, and it's always one of those things where it's like, this meets that. You walk in with Weird Science meets Queen Gambit, they just start throwing money at you.
No one's done that before. I guarantee you walked into these pitch meetings, which are happening about every 10 minutes in Hollywood and all over Hollywood, and no one said that.
Yeah, and once again, steal our idea. Please steal this just so I can watch this movie. We'll take no credit for it.
We're only saying these things so we get to watch them.
Yes.
All right, mine is also half-baked, but I like the idea that a lot of the actors and actresses in this are still acting today, and some have matured in their roles. So mine is the idea that years later, Dr. Carter, played by Kelly Lynch, mysteriously died. And her daughter, Karen, who's played by Kelly Cuoco. How do you say this?
I had to look it up. Hold on, I wrote it down. Cuoco. Yeah, Cuoco.
So Kelly Cuoco suspects that Sid is back and is behind her mother's murder. And she has to go seek out older, retired Denzel and convince her that Sid is going after him and her to settle some unfinished business from before. So then the movie is Kelly Cuoco and Denzel going against the new Sid. And it turns out there was a Sid 7.0 that they didn't show, and he was uploaded into the internet. So not only is it not a VR movie anymore, Sid is in the internet, and he's been learning in the internet before he gets birthed into reality again. So this isn't just a VR. This is an internet-absorbed Sid that's more advanced out in the real world that Denzel and Kelly Cuoco have to stop.
I mean, you said this was not fake. This is the most fully idea you've ever had. This is amazing. I feel like it's basically like Denzel is just cranking out these Equalizer movies now. This is that. He's still got it. And this is basically that same character. He's going to come join forces and right a wrong that's happened. It just happens also to be the sequel to Virtuosity.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That movie, the Equalizer series, is a big part of where this idea came from.
I mean, it's a brilliant idea. I love that. And I feel like you also had another one. Give us the middle of the movie with all these other copycat, the midquel. Give us that. You can watch it separate. You don't have to see it if you don't want to, but you just know that if you want more of the movie, you can go watch this other thing.
Do they have midquels?
They should.
That's a great idea. If there's like a part of a movie that like they glossed over. Like, whoa, let's just do that. Let's do the thing that we didn't show and make that the movie.
Yeah,
And then it's Virtuosity 1.2.
yeah, and you can like explore different things if you want or don't, and you don't have to watch it.
I think that's another new idea. Love it. Any notes we didn't get to?
I did think that this hit a bunch of our other films. Like it wasn't. It reminded me of a lot of other movies we did. Like The Meg had Chalk, another Chalk film.
Big Chalk movie.
The scene where they're putting the little brain implant in to Denzel made me think of the sequences in Paycheck.
Huge needle.
Yep, huge needle. I would. Oof. Hollow Man, this sort of like government experiment gone wrong that then creates this villain. The Net, for obvious reasons.
Obviously, yep.
And then also Shocker. I feel like the TV element, sort of jumping through TV, but then this like whole like TV was like almost a character at the end, gave me a little bit of Shocker vibes. So I feel like this is just it's picked up some of our greatest hits.
Yeah, Virtuosity is just an amalgamation of the movies we've already done with Denzel.
Mm-hmm.
What do I got? Oh, well, I brought this up earlier, but on the screen when Russell Crowe he had the whole broadcast on him, and they had the figures for how many people were watching, and they had the gender and income scale on the bottom for graphics.
Yep.
They also had a bar up that was showing the amount of viewers that were watching at the moment. Did you happen to see how high it went?
I didn't.
It went to 210 million viewers. Now, to put this in perspective, the most ever for a non-news event was the most recent Super Bowl with 115 million viewers. The biggest ever event was 150 million viewers. That was the Apollo moon landing. So this moment with Sid, he had 210 million people watching when that plug was pulled. So no wonder why that was the biggest event in media history.
That's amazing. That's a great poll. And of course it makes sense. It makes sense why he was so into it and become totally bored with that idea. That's amazing. And I do also feel like I feel like this movie like really resonates right now because I feel like it's also this like whole allegory for AI and what like unchecked AI could do. And I'm sure if we bring in some film nerds, they could really tell us the whole thing behind that. But it just seems obvious that right now that this film probably means more today now than it did when it came out because of where we are. Like a lot of this sort of AI stuff is now reality. And, obviously we don't have SID 6.7, but we have all these sort of dangers lurking in AI that maybe aren't that dissimilar.
This could use the Netflix boost of a movie they put like trending today, and all of a sudden this movie from the 90s pops on, and it should be Virtuosity pretty soon. Because you're right. It will. Last thing I thought was funny of a note was the cop who was still on Denzel's side. I forget his name. He went into the control room and smashed up all the computers. And I feel like that's such a 90s thing. Like, if you want to get rid of the information, smash the machines. If you did that today, like smash the screen in one little kiosk, they'd be like, dude, it doesn't live here. Like
someone would like pull up their phone and just be like, I got it right here. Don't worry. Boop.
Yeah, it's an impactful moment here in the 90s, but throwing chairs.
Throw a chair through this giant screen. You're like, oh, well, shit, out of luck.
Well, I can't do that. I can't inject him with poison anymore. We lost the screen.
Yeah. It's a great call.
All right, this was awesome. What do we have coming up next for the next movie?
So we are jamming back with we're doing our virtual reality double feature, and I should know it. It's the same director. We're doing Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, same director. Similar vibe as we are going past the limits of technology of the day. And I don't know if I've seen this movie, but I've absorbed so much from pop culture and seeing the trailers and whatever else that I can't wait to actually see this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely heavier on the sort of CGI and graphics things, and it's also older. It predates this film, so you definitely feel the 90s, but that's part of what makes this movie so great.
All right. Can't wait. This was a blast.
I totally agree. This was awesome. Can't wait to see the next one. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that too.
All right. See you next time.
All right. Later.
Later.